Most people believe that it is charity to give money to the poor or organisations that coordinate relief efforts to those in need, such as the poor and sick. And to some extent that can indeed be charity. But I put it to you that merely giving money to those who have none or offer salary donations to a charitable institution is not charity per se, and that for charity to be truly charitable, it must incorporate a key element that is often overlooked. Now please stick around for a new perspective. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of New Perspectives, a video series where we take a fresh look at spiritual concepts. In previous episode, we discussed the charitable concept of good, which leads us to a logical extension of doing good. Therefore, this time we will look at the concept of charity, as these two are intimately related. And I'm confident that you find the information in this video valuable for your personal spiritual journey, no matter what your belief is. It is universally accepted that it is incumbent upon all humans to look after those who cannot look after themselves. Like an inbuilt moral radar, we feel we must look after the weak and the vulnerable. It is not a uniquely accepted teaching of Christianity alone either, where we are called to look after our neighbour, for example, in the Gospel of Luke in chapter 10. Then Jesus answered and said, "A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a certain priest came down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Likewise a Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked, and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine, and set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day, when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, 'Take care of him, and whatever more money you spend, when I come again, I will repay you.' So which of these 3 do you think was neighbour to him who fell among thieves?" And he said, "He who showed mercy on him." Then Jesus said, "Go and do likewise." Now, as mentioned before, most people consider that charity requires the giving of food and money, but many fail to consider the ultimate effect. In my previous video, I mentioned that there is a big distinction between doing what feels good and doing what is actually good. While it may be easy to gloss over, it is actually an important point to grasp. The reason why I highlight the distinction between doing which does good and merely doing what feels good is that a great many fail to rationally consider the end effect, but rather decide from emotion alone to see if something should be good or not. Now let me give you an example, one you will very likely have encountered yourself. Consider a beggar on the street asking for a couple of dollars for the bus fare or to pay for some food. And then consider 2 different approaches. The first is to simply give what is asked and move on, the money. Now let's say the person is actually an alcoholic or a drug addict and seeking to get funds to feed his or her addiction. Do you believe giving the money and thereby feeding or facilitating the addiction is actually achieving a good end? Do you believe you are providing what the person really needs? Do you believe giving money in such an instance is actually truly charitable? Now try another approach. Offer and be willing to buy what is ultimately suggested, the bus fare, shoes, or food. Now you cannot force a bus fare, shoes, or food onto the person, and you may simply be wasting your time and money. But let's say that the person accepts your offer as they truly need to eat and truly haven't the money. Now then you have offered something that is beneficial and really needed. Then you have actually done good. Now this example may be relatively straightforward and makes the point clear, that I hope. And this is because the action is most closely associated with what is generally understood already to be charitable. But being charitable is an attitude that spans all of life's aspects, not just the giving of alms. It also extends into the realm of justice in politics, family life and work. Here's another example, this time in the realm of justice. So a great many people today call for justice, which to them means retribution. Sometimes the more emotional the victim or the circumstances, the stronger the penalty called for. Now luckily we haven't got the death penalty in Australia, but some countries do. Now I put it to you that charity and justice is not about penalising offenders and satisfying the need for retribution to appease the anger of the community and victim, but that it should be about the fundamental aspects of restitution and maintaining order. The aim of our justice system should be to seek to provide a strong enough consequence to prevent criminals from acting in the first place, like a deterrent, but also to make sure that they learn and understand why they shouldn't be doing it again, and to facilitate a change of heart. Like mere punishment doesn't operate from charity, especially if it's driven by anger, but a changed criminal does. Now, this approach is not dissimilar to how parents interact with their children or managers with their staff, and the same thing in other aspects of our life. Where rational consideration is given to the ultimate outcomes, where dealings are honest and genuine, and where priority is laid with the result rather than the perception, that is where we find charity at work. Good cannot be done blindly and without wisdom, nor can good be done deceitfully without causing damage somewhere else. So to sum it up, let me make you a couple of points. So my first point then is to suggest to you that charity is not generosity in itself. It is not the blind offering of money, food or clothing to the poor. It is not simply the giving of fish, so to speak. It goes beyond that. I suggest to you that true charity is doing good. In other words, doing what does good is charity. It is aiming to achieve a good outcome regardless of what it looks like. It requires rational consideration to what is really needed and what the ultimate outcome is that may be achieved. In his work Charity, early 18th century philosopher Emanuel Swedenborg writes the following about charity requiring prudence in his paragraph 51. Whoever does not distinguish the neighbour according to the quality of good and truth in him may be deceived 1,000 times, and his charity become confused, and at length no charity at all. A man devil may exclaim, I am a neighbour, do good to me. And if you do good to him, he may kill you or others. You are placing a knife or a sword in his hand. And in the same work, in paragraph 54, genuine charity itself is prudent and wise. Other charity is spurious because it is of the will or of good alone, and not at the same time of the understanding or truth. Of course, it doesn't have to be as dramatic as to facilitate murder. The negative effects can be much more subtle or not even involve a secondary victim, as I highlighted before. My second point is that true charity requires us to be personally committed emotionally in wanting to achieve a good outcome, to wish well and to do actual good regardless of our own recognition in the process. In other words, that it is only charitable if we prioritize the usefulness or good it achieves and not take our own merit into consideration. There is nothing charitable about patting yourself on the back and telling everybody how good you are. Swedenborg uses the term evil, but selfishness can be used synonymously, where he explains that we ought to remove our own self-interest and meritorious views. To will to do good to the neighbour is of charity. This is known, for it is believed that to give the poor, to assist the needy, and many other things are goods of charity. But yet they are goods only so far as the man shuns evils as sins. If a man does them before he shuns evils as sins, they are external goods, yea, done for the sake of merit. For they flow forth from an impure fountain, and the things which issue from such a fountain are inwardly evils. The man is in them, and the world is in them. And in paragraph 11, who does not see that an impenitent man is evil, and who does not see that an evil man has not charity? And who does not see that he who has not charity cannot do charity? Charity must be from charity within a man. Now, to me, this is just common sense, which is often lacking today. Now, as I highlighted in my previous episode on good and evil, good requires a moral absolute. It requires a use outside of itself, and thus good can only be selfless. In other words, good does not exist in a state of selfish desire, and this is what we just read in Swedenborg too. Now, Swedenborg clearly equates charity with doing good, but he goes further on and focuses on the neighbour as being good itself, meaning that doing good can only be good when it is for the sake of achieving good, and that this aim is the neighbour in spiritual terms. It comes then as no surprise that in order to be charitable and do good, one must understand what good actually is. That someone who seeks good fears to inadvertently achieving a bad outcome. Now, what do you think? Do you agree? Disagree? Please leave a comment below, subscribe to this channel, and watch the future episodes in this series. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. What's next? What's the next video?